Welcome to Living in the Matrix. I'm Jonathan, and I'm left of center.
And I'm Rich, and I tend to lean a little bit more to the right. But the bottom line is together we try to look for the balance of what it means to be human in today's world.
Awesome. And
Good.
again, thank you for having me and for seeing me, for acknowledging me. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're a beautiful human being. I like what you're doing. So let's get started, I guess. This is Jonathan in Living in the Matrix. I have an absolute wonderful guest with me today. It's a friend of mine that I met on Instagram. His name is Nicky Scorpio. And Nicky, I'll just let you kind of introduce yourself because I think you know yourself better, but tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So this journey started what I do is coaching in a different way. A lot of what I'm about and what has gotten me to this space is realizing that there is always a different choice in perspective, and that a lot of times human beings will drop clues about who they are or what's important to them, and we live with these belief systems that a lot of times can block us. So I started going on this journey because I was in a mentally, verbally, and physically abusive relationship. And I started learning about different spiritual concepts, learning about
Mhm.
mental health. It was one day where somebody told me, "You have an interesting way of saying things. You must have a very high emotional intelligence." I'd never heard of emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
So I started doing a deep dive as I was continuing to learn about myself. And this led to me being in Hollywood, and I would meet people. They would introduce me to like this successful person. And partially being an introvert, if you're an introvert, you know you're constantly reading and observing and looking at all these different concepts and very, very heady kind of lifestyle. And I noticed
Mhm.
that there was a time where in the relationship that I was in, she spoke about something that was categorically important to her, and this person who she was doing business with changed the conversation and went to, "I would pay for Botox for you if you wanted to get it. Honey, you're so beautiful." And I was like,
Mm.
that was weird. And I pointed that out to her. She said, "No, I didn't. I didn't." Well, it frustrated me, but I didn't really see how I was talking about something important, how they changed the conversation. Why? What should I do? And I said, "Well, you can still do business with them. I personally wouldn't
Mhm.
share something that's personal and important to me with that person." So this led to me working behind the scenes as a consultant with people, where I would go into meetings, hang out with executives, and just not say anything, but just read the room and point out factual observations. It was later after the lockdown where I got on TikTok, and I just felt alone. I'd gotten out of the abusive relationship. I was in Manhattan. I didn't really know what the next move was. I posted a video asking if anybody felt like there was a lot going on. People responded, and then that led to me live streaming, which turned into a full time career, being able to offer perspective for people who have experienced trauma, abusive relationships, domestic
Mhm.
violence, and things of that nature, because we're in an abusive relationship on planet Earth. So we're the people who are the leaders moving forward, and just giving people that empowerment of self discovery.
I love the way you started this because it's from what I've seen is it's classic you is you have a beautiful way of seeing your experience. It's not all good, but damn, you see it as beautiful. You see it as worthwhile. And I think that's what I love about you is you have this capacity to enjoy the moment and learn from it because those are the spaces where life gets beautiful and grows because when you're stuck in life sucks all the time, yeah, it sucks, but let's live a positive perspective. How do you find meaning out of it? And that's what I love about what you do. How did you get so where does that begin, that journey to understanding what emotional intelligence is for you? Where did that start?
I for me for me it was really because I've always been curious by nature. I
Mhm.
often tell people, if you really want to start changing your life for free, the best advice, you can call it awareness, it's curiosity. It's being
Yes.
curious as to why you make the choices that you make. That's always been ingrained in my human design. It was
Mhm.
really getting into the abusive relationship where I started to become aware of patterns. On
Mhm.
top of that, I was hanging out with people who are very financially successful, people who are very spiritually enlightened, and notice how they wouldn't give attention to certain things. Notice that we would see the exact same occurrence and we would react to it differently, and then becoming even more curious about that. And then from there, just really starting to do a deep dive on what makes a human the way that they are, and things like mother wounds and father wounds, and how our past connects to the way that we perceive life now. And and that got me to this space of, we're all storytellers. A lot of times we're telling our story from somebody else's viewpoint that doesn't make
Mhm.
sense in our life anymore. And so it's being able to say, like, is this belief mine? Is the fact that I'm hard on myself, is that because society taught me that, or am I choosing that? So I can go through the same circumstance that another person can. And if you and I, my analogy with people is, you and I can both apply for the same job. If both of us get turned down, you might be bummed out. I say thank God, because better opportunities are coming my way, right? So it's momentum, it's a practice, and it
Mhm.
feels fake and it feels cheesy at first when you've been living in the trauma and living in the muck. And then, just like exercising or like learning how to walk and talk, it doesn't make sense to go backward after you start to realize that your perspective, your belief does in fact create your reality.
Your own experience comes out of trauma. Like, you're not someone sitting on the sidelines and learning about it from a book perspective. You've experienced that and have stepped out of that. What made you step out? Because I think everybody can talk about how bad it is, but what made you take the healing action to remove yourself from it?
I feel like most people who've gone through trauma don't connect with their anger as much as they should. I believe, and I actually identified myself that I had a negative connotation
Mhm.
with anger, whereas anger is actually connected with intuition. It's when we give it away to people where we feel drained and the loss of power. I got to a place where I snapped. I That relationship was almost a decade long. I tried every single approach. She still wasn't making the choices that I
Mhm.
was making. And so I got to a space where I remember when I was living in Manhattan, I was living in the nice neighborhood, and then I moved out of that because I was getting out of that relationship. And I stopped and I realized that her perspective didn't exist anymore. And then I
Mhm.
started thinking about, why do I actually not like my life? And then I realized it boiled down to, people had opinions about me. And then I stopped and I thought, when was there actually a time where I didn't know that people had opinions about me? And then from
Mhm.
there, I realized it's going back to childhood, and it's looking through paying bills, all the adult things that we do, through the excitement of a child, and being able to say, like, I don't want to live with the fact that I was taken advantage of when I was a child and just say that's what it was. And I don't want to think about that. I don't want to look at, that I grew up as an artificial insemination. My mom's lesbian. My birth father was gay. He died of AIDS when I was 9. I grew up in a neighborhood where people didn't look like me. I don't want to just accept that society says that there's something wrong with you, and just take that on. So for me, it was really sitting down with myself and to say, it doesn't logically make sense that I don't like natural occurrences that have happened to me. How can I honestly and authentically look at this thing that used to be painful from a place of, this is teaching me something, I'm learning something, and I can
Mhm.
help other people and find purpose within my pain?
Mhm. Who helped you through that process? Did you kind of, because I'm a curious person and I learn from a ton of people and I have a few mentors. Who did you learn from, or did you kind of go it alone?
Um, it was really a combination of things. So really, a lot of it was getting into ancient wisdom, is getting into Eastern philosophies. One of my mentors is Shaman Durek, Durek. He's an African
Mhm.
shaman. He's getting married to the princess in Norway and doing amazing things for race relationships. He's the first shaman to go on national television. He's somebody who really, the first time that I called him up and was like, I'm going to throw my phone out the window, I'm losing my mind, she's irritating me. And he was like, you should thank her for the fact that you're this pissed off, because this isn't
Mhm.
even about her. And I was like, what that blew
Mhm.
my mind. A lot of it was shamanism. There were seminars that I went to. Mind Valley is really amazing. Vision, who's the creator of Mind Valley, has a lot of information, wisdom, and knowledge. I went to Landmark, which used to be Est. I like the information they have. It gets a little bit Scientology after a while, and so like I got what I got, and I moved forward. I tried the group therapy, the men's therapy, the single therapy. I personally don't like saying that I'm angry and sad over and over and over again and
Mhm.
funding people's vacation homes. Um, and I tried couples therapy, and it was like a comedy skit of the advice for $90 that I was getting, so it was all of these, it was just, there was a silver lining in that relationship because she also wanted to learn about these concepts. It's just when you're taught not to show your emotions and feelings, it's complicated when it comes to that. People call that person a narcissist. It's just they're just not
Yeah.
emotionally available. And so,
Mhm.
that in that relationship, I got the understanding of this was my master class for the original intention that I had as a child. It was just being able to go on this journey of, I don't like how I feel. And I'm starting to step outside of my comfort zone in my community. And I'm seeing that other people have happiness. And I want a piece of that. And I'm going to be
Mhm.
determined and I'm going to be relentless. And I'm not going to take no for an answer because I'm finally starting to realize that I truly deserve that. So wherever I can find wisdom and knowledge, whether that's from a homeless person or from somebody who's charging $1,000 or whatever, that I can find that information. And again, in my design, like you said, how you're curious, I feel like most people don't go deep enough and they
Mhm.
don't give enough thought to concepts like be in the present moment or everything happens for a reason. I think that people take very surface level looks at concepts that can really empower them. And that's within my nature to go back to ancient wisdom and astrology. I'm a
Mhm.
Scorpio stellium. So I have 6 different planets that are in Scorpio, and Scorpio stellium, part of our journey is learning information to share it with other people. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's me. That's how
Mhm.
intentional I am. It's bottom line, you said it best. It's the curiosity. You want to know what makes people tick. If you are curious enough about yourself, you'll find that you have all the answers and you'll find that you're more powerful than you've been given credit for. It was just not giving up and just honoring that curiosity within me, and from a genuine place after feeling all of that, wanting to share that with people because you know how good
Mhm.
it feels, and just finding the way to communicate it and connect it with people.
I walk my dog every night and have that same feeling is there is wisdom in the universe that we experience that is beautiful that you want other people to experience. Like, I think I'm a huge believer in the unified field. And from a quantum theory perspective, the unified field is the new scientific construct. It's the final mergence of theology and science, finally coming together and saying, okay, there is a single field, let's all party. And I think life is about learning how to experience that. And the ancient wisdom all says essentially the same thing. You got to love yourself first. That's it. So for you, was there a moment? I always like to ask my guests, was there a moment that you awakened to you were loved?
Yes, I love this question. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I moved I went from the Upper West Side, ego, blah blah
Mhm.
blah, classy classy, to the Coney Island projects.
Okay.
I had a week to find a place to live and a job. I called up my friend whose name is Bob. I know that rhymes. It's like I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. I called up my friend Bob, and I was like, I have to find a place to live. I need to find a job because my company just laid me off, and like
Right.
I'm in a relationship where she destroys everything that's nice. And so he said I have a job for you. I don't think you're gonna like it though, but I think you're gonna be amazing at it. And so I'm like, okay, what is it? And he's like, well, it's a bathroom attendant. You're mopping up floors in the bathroom at a nightclub in Manhattan. And I'm like, come on,
Okay.
man. He's like, I told you, but you can make tips, and I know that you're a hustler. And I was like, and my intuition, which I've learned 100% intuition, I'm like, okay, feels good, cool. All right. So I was excited. I messaged my at the time girlfriend. She said, I'm gonna break up with you because that's trashy and I don't want to be with somebody who's this way and that way. And my intuition was like, this woman's more indecisive than anything in the world. Do it anyway. Like, you're here right now. You don't have the luxury of second guessing yourself right now. So I went to this job and I just, something just hit me and I was like, your life is now a movie and everybody who's watching you is lucky to be in your presence. And then I remembered, and this is a different version of what I teach of how you can use your emotional intelligence. I remembered people like Shaman Durek. I remembered the man that I connected with that was worth $350 million. We were talking about childhood trauma. I remember connecting with different CEOs and CMOs when I was talking to them about mental health and how they saw me as an equal. And then I remembered that I was grateful. I was talking about something that was interesting to me, and I convinced myself there are more people out there that are like that when you are yourself. And it's almost as if there's a mathematical equation where I can stay in my gratitude and stay in that excitement regardless of 3D
Mhm.
interpretation. And so I went into that job as that bathroom attendant, and every time that I turned on the water faucet, it was my pleasure when they'd say thank you. I put the soap in their hands, not fake, not cheesy, but it was
No, you
authentic.
went for it.
My pleasure. Yes, because
Yeah.
I have gratitude and my energy is amazing. And I remembered those key moments and I amplified that. Well, people kept on telling me, yo, like, I love your energy, man. Like, I used to do something like this. Keep going. And I connected with some really amazing
Oh.
people. And then afterwards, I go to email my girlfriend at 4 o'clock in the morning when I get back into the projects. And then she goes, well, maybe you should keep that job. And I'm like, okay, like, he's indecisive. Like, that's when I really started to connect with my gratitude and combine
Mhm,
that with my anger of nobody is going to tell you who you are, but I'm
mhm,
not going to give away the anger. I'm just going to, before I get around humans, before I get around society, I am going to hold myself accountable, have the ability to respond, responsibility to say, remember your gratitude, remember there's an opportunity.
mhm,
If you make $400 today in tips or $4 today in tips, you are still going to that space. So it was that moment where
mhm.
it was me trusting myself, me
Yeah.
going into a space of this is scary and I don't want to be abandoned and codependent, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm,
blah, blah stuff of saying, this feels slightly better than how I've been living before, and I'm going to do it anyway. And getting that acknowledgement and realizing again, there's a formula to getting to where you want to go, letting go of that control. And really, like you said it best, trusting yourself, going internal instead of needing that validation and needing to
mhm.
look good in society, because none of us know which road is going to take us to that happiness.
I it You captured it beautifully with the idea of we have to begin with gratitude. That's where it begins. And because you don't have to know that you're loved, but when you experience gratitude, you experience the universe loving you back.
Yes.
Because it will, when you give, there you go. Here's your soap. How can I serve you? How can I be of help to you? It always comes back more than you've
Yes.
ever given. And that is the mystery of this thing called the unified field or the kingdom of God or heaven or whatever anybody wants to call it. It's this space where if you are a giver in a pretense of love and you're giving, it will always come back to you. And it magnifies the more people that participate in that. The more people that participate in it, it grows more energetic.
Yes, I heard something recently and it was just a random video. I can't even credit the person. I wish I could, but they were saying if you believe that everything is energy and vibration, consider the fact that abundance, prosperity, joy, and opportunities all resonate at a certain vibration, at a certain frequency. When you
Mm-hmm.
go above that, when you release the expectation and you do it from a place of gratitude, from a place of excitement, you become a money magnet, you become an excitement magnet.
Yeah.
And the analogy that I got for that is when you go into an elementary school and you see a child playing with toys, all and they're having a good time, all the other kids want to go play with that toy and they want to have fun like that person. So we're doing that with our
Mhm.
traumas, and we're doing that with our insecurities, and we're doing
Yeah.
that with our lessons and the joys and everything that is us to rise above that. I don't need approval. It's nice to have financial freedom. I don't expect anything. And ironically, when I let go of all of that, that's when it all came to me, because I'm
Mhm.
having a good time, because I'm not expecting anything, and because I'm open to happiness and joy
Yeah.
showing up in a way I never expected.
You're having the same experience that I'm having. It's crazy to listen to you because some days when so about I've literally been studying love for about 30 years. I grew up a Christian and I never connected to the religious part, but I connected to Jesus in a very deep way because it was go love yourself. And I had a
Yes.
mom who communicated that to me. And the practice of love is a really hard, arduous journey if you're stuck completely here. If you are operating from your mind only, the practice of love is really hard. It has to include your heart. And that's what I am experiencing in waves, like mega waves, because I've allowed it to really come down into my heart as well. And this congruence is happening that it allows it to explode. And it's interesting that I now realize I can walk into a room and energize a room with that love. And it lights people up in a way that they're not used to because they're enjoying the moment. It's a weird experience. What
It's
is your experience in terms of that energy that happens when you feel love?
For me, what I've realized at the foundation, when you strip everything away from who I am, when I connected with the childhood version of me, I'm
Mhm.
excitement. And I realized that most people don't
I
have
love it.
excitement, right? And
Yeah.
so when it comes to matters of the heart like love, it's
Hmm.
also understanding, if your roadmap, if growing up, love was yelling and fighting and making up and crying and chaos, and you meet somebody whose love was healthy parents, healthy boundaries, healthy communication, it doesn't translate, right?
Right.
So part of it, getting to this space of actually
Hmm.
even being able to receive love, is looking at the relationships that I saw and saying, how did that create the viewpoint, the filter, the perspective that I have,
Hmm.
and how does this show up for me when somebody who thinks differently or looks like they have their stuff together, when maybe subconsciously I don't feel that way, how can I connect with that person if I don't even believe that I deserve that? So really, it's getting into the space of, one, I'm not comparing myself to other people, and two, I am going to figure out the way that my human design is, so that
Hmm.
I know myself, so that I can communicate. Like my wife, when we were dating, when we were getting to know each other, I had a lot of conversations of like, this is what I'm good at. This is where I get overwhelmed. This is what I'm working on. Are you good with that? And let me listen to you, what you've gone through. I wonder how that would impact arguing. I wonder how that would affect
Hmm.
when it comes to money, when it comes to financial decisions. And again, most people look for external validation, so they don't get fascinated by their life. They don't get curious about what love actually means and why do I keep on falling into these patterns. I feel like people, it's almost as if the thing I've been sharing with people recently, it's a process of removing yourself from yourself. It's stepping outside of yourself and
Hmm.
then looking at that person to say, this is my best friend or this is my child. And when those internal thoughts come up, those insecurities come up, or that anger or that I don't deserve love, self-sabotage shows up, what advice would I have wanted to be given? What perspective would I want to have that really connects with me, right? So,
Hmm.
love, people say that they want love, but the reason why the divorce rate is so high and why people self sabotage is based off of the stories that they tell themselves. So, lastly, if you're a woman and you want to get into a relationship with a man, and that man loves you and wants to spend every second with you, but your father wasn't around because he was traveling or doing business or wasn't emotionally
Mhm.
available, it's going to feel uncomfortable for you that that person actually wants to get to know you. So it's really taking a deep dive to look at what did I see, and then mapping out to say what are possibilities as to how that's affected me, and how can I cross the bridge to actually have healthy love, and baseline even know that I deserve to have that when it shows
Mhm.
up.
You mentioned earlier about intuition. I had a weird experience last week where I lost my wallet on a walk with my dog, so it could have been anywhere. The pocket, I put my phone back there and I pulled it out and the wallet fell out. And I remember sitting on the couch going, that walk is going to take me at least an hour to complete. What should I do? And I just listen. I stopped for a second. No rational thought whatsoever. I just listened to my intuition and I knew exactly where it was. And I go, I'm going to go check it out. And I went and I found it. It was one of the most unique experiences because it validated the need and necessity of intuition. How has that played a role in your life?
So I've realized the strongest thing that we have about ourselves is our belief. Like I
Mhm.
tell people, especially if you've grown up in a family that didn't talk about feelings and emotions,
Mhm.
intuition doesn't really show up for you, because intuition shows up, but then I'm not going to look good if I do that. People are going to have
Right.
opinions about me if I do that, right? So
Right.
I started to notice after my account started popping off on TikTok, that because I intuitively wanted to post that video. It was my logic that was like, but look at your hair, but look at the lighting, but look at your outfit. People are going to have opinions about you. It was my intuition that was like, but you don't want to hang out with those kind of people. So why do you care about them? And so I was like, oh, and I posted it, and now here we are, right? So I realized my motto for myself is 100% intuition. So I'll give you a perfect analogy. From that bathroom attendant job, I got a management deal while I was working as that bathroom attendant for somebody who works with, I'm not going to name drop, but just big celebrities, big artists. And it sounded really, really good to tell people about this. The problem was he was focused on those other artists because I was the new guy, and they hadn't seen my live streams. They didn't know really what I was up to. It was just more music and entertainment, and things of that nature, when that was more of my focus. So I got told I needed to raise $4,000 for this song that I had. And so I got on my live streams and I was telling people, somebody from Romania sent me $4,000 in one setting, without any kind of like anything other than, I support you. When you get the money, pay me back. I gave that money to them, and there wasn't communication, and there was impatience, and there wasn't a dialogue going on. Then I started getting this message that was like, you need to leave New York. It's turning into Gotham City. It's not here for you. You need to go. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Intuition will have you questioning your existence and questioning your
Mhm.
sanity. And I'm like, that doesn't make any kind of sense. This is what I've wanted. And I kept on noticing that same irritation, that same frustration. The last week that I was in New York, 3 different people with mental health issues were trying to attack young women, and I had to go in there and stop that. And I'm like, I can't every single time that I step outside go into protector mode. This isn't it for me. Well, there was somebody that I connected with through my live streams that was going on a road trip. And I was getting this message of, you need to go on the road and you need to connect with people and you need to light them up and you need to show them the connection and bring people together. Like, what's that movie where if you build it, they will come?
Mhm. Field of
Right?
Dreams. Yeah.
Yes. So kind of like that energy, like a very faith-based thing. And I'm like, being logical, I'm like, this is crazy. This doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
And I was even talking to a mentor of mine, and I'm like, everything about this person is a walking red flag. I would walk by them and I wouldn't even think twice. I picked up something about them isn't right, but my intuition was like, yep, but you're going to find the solution. Do it anyway. And it just, life, because I was open to that idea, because I was trusting, it just got me, it funneled me to that place. I
Mhm.
communicated with this person. I said, this is how much money I have. These are my expectations. This is what I'm open to. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm getting better at. Where are you at? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Do we have places to stay? It's organized. Perfect. I then found out that person was a pathological liar. I then found out that person was a hoarder. I then found out all these different frustrating things about this person. They lied about how much money they had. They needed for me to take over ownership of the car that we were driving. They needed to take every single belonging with them in a van. They wanted to have a child with me. All of this crazy stuff I normally don't deal with because I'm capped in structure and discipline and consistency. This was a new thing for me. So I kept trusting, I kept trusting, I kept finding the solutions. I created a mantra with myself of solutions only. So every time they had a problem, I had a solution. I was
Mhm.
rising to the occasion. I ended up in North Carolina with somebody who was initially a client and then turned into my moderator and then turned into now my best friend. He was my best man at my wedding. It was initially supposed to be a couple days that I stayed there, and it ended up staying longer because of her pathological lying, because of all that chaos. We went different ways. We went in separate directions. I stayed in North Carolina. The roommate at this place where I was at didn't like me. He just didn't like anything about me at all. He's like, you're a scam artist and you're crooking people on Instagram. And I'm like, haha, you're bamboozled. Why are we speaking this way? Like it's 1922. And it got to the place where it was getting dangerous, that he was shooting guns when I was doing live streams in the backyard and just crazy stuff that I come from humble beginnings. It's different, not what I'm used to. A
Mhm.
woman who was in my live streams saw what was going on, and she also was getting a message to go on a journey. She booked time with me. We started talking. Turns out that we had like minds and had the same intention. She wanted to start up a nonprofit, where you're giving people resources and education and information. And I was like, I've been wanting to give people education and giving people homes and creating communities and grid lines as well. I love this. Well, she drove over to North Carolina. She's now my wife. So
Nice, dude.
all of that journey, now that I'm a happily married man, now that I have a career with purpose, now that I'm expanding all of this, the initial journey of that felt crazy, and it felt very frightening, and it felt very out of my element. Intuition isn't logical.
Mhm.
Intuition is really, again, it's the very very first split second, and then it goes to, are you going to go into your trauma responses, or are
Right.
you going to trust
It
that? For
speaks
me,
quietly.
yeah, so
Yes.
for me, it's like now I can't go backwards. Because I keep on seeing that my intuition is on point. When I read people, I find out things about them days, weeks, months, years later, and that intuition is vital because, again, the way that I got here, the fact how you and I are talking, that journey, very out of character. When I tune into who I am now and where I'm at, when the camera's off and the lights are off, I'm happy. I've made it. I've made it.
Mhm. Yeah, that I think that's what people want is the capacity to turn off the noise in their head so they can enjoy just where they're at. Because a lot of people have decent and good lives and they can't even enjoy them because they're so stressed, because they're so at odds with other people. And I think that's the value of doing the work is the all the trauma is stored as negative energy in our bodies because we at some point made a bad judgment about ourselves. Like we got whatever happened in our trauma, but we store it inside of us, our judgment. And until we release that, we will never know life to be joyous because we're always fighting against that old, dark, musty energy that wants to escape. Our body's sending us tons of triggers, but it's hard to trust in the intuition that says, go this way instead. And
Especially especially if you're told that you're stupid, especially if
Yeah.
you're told that you're not good enough. You're just going to keep on validating that because you wanted approval from mom and dad.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's why a big part of our ego, because our ego scientists now realize is our default mode network. And it's essentially operates exactly like AI. It's a construct that works off of training and inference. They're very similar. I work in AI, where I used to, and and we're now realizing, wait a minute, your ego actually has a good purpose to protect you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's hard. Intuition pulls us away from the leadership of the ego, but we don't have to kill the ego to work with it. It's a handshake that can be recreated, but the intuition has to really be in control, because I think our intuition is a full combination of our head and our heart. And when those are in congruence, our intuition takes over. But it's hard to live
Ego,
in intuition because our life creates so much evidence that it's not going to happen.
yes, well said. The way my friend Shaman Dirk told me, ego is a value system. So
Mhm.
if you're saying nothing ever works out for me, then ego is going to show that to you and say, here it is. What are you going to
Yeah.
do with this information? Do you still think it's that way? Or are you going to see if there's other options? And in that same way, if you say everything works out for me, like how my motto, my mantra was, when I was doing that job, when I was living in that poverty, my mantra was every choice I make is the right one. Because when I fall down, I learn a lesson. When I learn a lesson, I don't have to repeat that.
Mhm.
So new age spirituality has us thinking that ego is a bad thing. Ego is a value system. And when you understand that, that's where you start to again realize your belief system creates the reality that you live in. We're all going
Mhm.
through the same circumstances. You're not going to get success and everybody claps their hands and everything opens up. You could make $5 million and somebody could sue you for $10 million. It's
Mhm.
being able to understand happiness is a choice, and it's getting out of the societal lie of happiness is when you approve of me. Happiness is when I don't hurt anybody's feelings. Happiness is when you actually look at everything and you say, I want to learn and I want to be better. I don't want to be right. I don't want to be right. I want to be happy. And sometimes within happiness, which people battle on that one all the time, you can't be both at the same time. Okay. Happiness means sometimes temporarily we're uncomfortable and life sucks.
Mhm. And most of what we think sucks is just our inability to handle what's happening in the moment. That's
Exact,
it. You know,
exact.
so I want to dovetail a little bit because I've been thinking about this since I invited you. You grew up in a very unique childhood with two gay mothers. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was that like for you? Because I come from a very different history of Christianity. That was wrong. Okay. I
Right.
don't believe that. I had a lot of gay family members. I have a lot of family members of my or cousins that are gay. So I
Yeah.
dealt with it a long time ago. But for the average person who didn't grow up in that world, what was that like for you? And I want to draw out the best parts of it.
Yes. First of all, I'll say I encourage people because I love God and I love Jesus, and I'm closer to God and closer to Jesus than the air that I breathe. I want to encourage you to go deeper in your truth seeking. For those of you that are on the fence about that, because that is a mistranslation and it's a misinterpretation. And God is unconditional love, and I was very much taught to find God for myself. So my mom says I have a more broader perspective of what is normal for people. So
Yeah.
not only did I grow up with two mothers, I also grew up again. My neighbors were part of the Black Panther Party. I saw my mom get attacked when I was 5 years old, and she got hit with a 2x4 because there was a miscommunication with my brother and a neighbor. And my mom had blood going down her face. And the police said there's no witnesses because you don't snitch in the hood. And the next
Right.
day, my mom was taking care of the kids from the families that didn't want to snitch that were attacking her. So my mom very much grew up being after she came out that she very much got into feminism. Um, the original version of feminism, of just like, hey, look at how women have created life, look at how women have been warriors, look at how in the
Mhm.
1600s how beauty standards were defined differently, and like, really getting me into that space and understanding that. So I grew up in that environment of women create life, and that we honor women, and we respect them, right? And that was good until my non-biological mother left and said, I don't want children, I didn't want this, this was your idea. And then I learned about abandonment and codependency and all of that. So we moved out of Berkeley, California. We moved into, somebody's like, oh, of course he's from Berkeley right now, right? Of course he's from California, right? So then we moved into Alameda, which doesn't belong in the Bay Area. It's very conservative.
Right.
The
Yeah.
year before we moved in there was Klan members marching down the street handing out flyers and just craziness. So I went from everybody loving me and knowing me and me being like the class clown and everybody was cool with Nicky, to who's this weird kid. And they're like, what kind of music do you listen to? And I'm like, everything. And they're like, you can't do that, you're a poser. And I'm like, oh God, get me out of here. So growing up in that, I experienced bullying. I experienced homophobia as a straight young man. Um,
Did they
I
automatically assume that about you, that you were
I
gay?
well, it wasn't that. It was more so of, I distinctly remember when I was around 15 years old, my mom used to read to me. Parents used to read to your kids every single day. It just
Sure.
it long term does so much.
Yeah.
There was a phone call, and there was like three, four, five people on the phone, and it was, is it true that your mom's DYKE? Is it true that you're on welfare? All this different stuff, and there was
Mhm.
people laughing in the background. So I didn't know. I was infamous in this school. Like, everybody knew about me. I had no idea, because it's a smaller town. It's an island, right? And so, to answer your question, in those moments, it was frustrating. It was hard because of the bullying, because I was insecure.
Mhm.
Bigger picture, again, all of the things that I've experienced, I feel like I have been an outsider who's on the inside of
Mhm.
certain communities and cultures and circles from the outside. It's like I'm an insider on the outside, but I'm an outsider on the inside. And so
Mhm.
I can talk about certain concepts and be an ally and be an advocate and go in front of people. Like, for example, I've talked with people that are on the conservative side of things that don't want to hear about the misinterpretations and are just like, this is what God says, this is God's word, this is the Bible, and that's it. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, fair enough. If that's how you want to live, I respect, I agree to disagree.
Right.
However, let me ask you a question. You go to church on Sunday, right? Absolutely, every single Sunday. Okay, well, you love your wife, don't you? Well, of course I do. Well, sometimes you want to hold your wife's hand because you're feeling the Holy Spirit, you're feeling God's word, you're feeling the gospel, and you love that. The next time after your service, I want for you, when you walk outside, I want for you to look to your left and look to your right and hope to God that nobody kills you because you love your wife, because you want to hold her hand. That's what the people that you don't like, that God loves unconditionally, experience on a regular basis. And they go, wow, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, imagine that. All politics, all translations aside, how would you feel about that? And then we can have a different conversation, and then we can have a breakthrough.
You're blowing my mind in a really super awesome way, because that is the perfect story spoken from a straight white male with a gay mom.
On
You
air,
were on the inside. Nobody can provide a better understanding of what a gay woman can experience as you, because you're her child watching it your entire life. And that's what it felt like. That's the important part, is what you shared is what it feels like. It hurts and it's not necessary.
right, right,
Like, that's the thing that I hate about the whole gay conversation within the church, is the church conveniently forgets about the love part. That's what it's supposed to be known, not as the judgment. And it
right.
loves to hold on to the judgment. That's the part I have never reconciled with. I just can't live
Well,
that way.
it's really at the end of the day. if people don't have something to hate, then they're going to have time to go internally and take responsibility. And for some people, the cognitive dissonance says, I don't want to do that because it's too painful and I hurt too
Mhm.
much. Right. So
Yeah.
again, that's why we're here to have these conversations, because I get that some people sign up to be told what to do, and because it's easier that way. And I get that. I don't want for people to live my way. I want to
Mhm.
know, like kids playing in the sandbox, you can look into my eyes and see God and see that love, and that we can agree to disagree, and that when
Mhm.
you love yourself, my lesbian mother isn't a problem. When you're whole and complete, you're not
Yes.
looking at me and saying you shouldn't be around. I'm a
Mhm.
mirror reflection. I'm
Mhm.
showing you what love is. In fact, my conversation with people who experience homophobia and racism is, you're actually more self expressed. And that person who was told that they're not good enough or they're stupid looks at you, and you're holding up a mirror and you're saying, this is what self expression looks like. This is what love looks like. And that person has to take a look at that and says, I don't have that. I want that, like a child. And now I'm going to attack you because my dad or my mom told me that I don't deserve that. Right. So when you start to look at the concept of mirroring, this is where you can understand people aren't homophobic. They're not racist. They're powerless. They're powerless. And when you can
I
have a
love that.
conversation with somebody to say, like when I see people that are doing that, I say, why do you speak in a way that implies that you're powerless? Why are you
Mhm.
being so powerless right now? What are you talking about? Because if you were full of power, you wouldn't have time to look at that other person and see a flaw in them.
There's no power in judgment. That's the brilliance of what you're saying is the reality. There's only power in love. There's force in judgment. Like I want the world to do what I want it to do, and love says no. We all coexist, and most people go for the lesser of the power. It's just force. It's control, and it always creates fear, and it never works. And I think we are waking up to the reality that that no longer works as a humanity. I think it's do you I'm assuming you probably know what the age of Aquarius. Do you buy into that?
We are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before my wife is more versed on astrology, and I highly
Hmm.
recommend for people to do deep dives, not just look at the
Hmm.
newspaper one that says that you're going to feel
Right.
lucky, because all of our ancestors used to go into those spaces.
Right.
um we're now
Jesus was discovered by astrologists.
right.
The three wise men were astrologists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I even went to Egypt recently, and horoscope is connected to Horus, and Christianity
Yeah.
respects Egypt. Very fascinating.
Right.
So we're living in the truth now. This is
Yeah.
I am, I know now. So that's why, coincidentally, for the non believers and skeptics, all
Yeah.
of these politicians are getting exposed, both sides of it, that
Mhm.
people are saying, I don't want to do this job anymore. I deserve to be paid more. That you're going to see more of this. So the people that are committed, that are doing the work or the dedication or the commitment, you are going to be the one that is rising above. The people who have been more extroverted, that don't want to show their emotions, that go into presentation based love and presentation mode, those are the ones that are losing their you know what right now, because you can't play that game and you can't do that right now. And even on a business level, because I still do it, but I don't focus on it. I've been signed with voiceover agencies. In acting and entertainment, they don't want, hi, how are you doing? Everything's perfect. They want relatable, they want
Mhm.
raw, they want honest. And that's where I see the impact, that I hated being vulnerable before, that where I open my heart and I say, this is who I am. The people who don't respect me, they're just not my people. It's not that
Mhm.
serious. It's not that deep. It's
Right.
just, you're the
Right.
confidence test. Thank you so much for reminding me that when I love myself, I don't need your validation. And
Right.
the people that actually get what I'm saying love me. So now, because I'm honest, there's no middle ground for me. And I don't deal with people that like the idea of me or want to hang on to my energy because blah, 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 blah.
You know what? You mentioned something about your mom. It sounds like your mom was a fiercely loving woman, not a fierce woman, but a fiercely loving. Like she loved her enemies. And
Yes.
that is to me the gospel. That's the uniqueness of what your mom is being an example of, is exactly who Jesus would want her to be, is someone who's fiercely loving and still not able to be in part of the club. It's like, it's just, I want to move past that age where we get over that, because I've been in that conversation theologically for about 15 years now, and it's tiring. It's over.
Right.
It's like, can we move past it? They're human beings. You got to start there, because we
I
got to create that connection.
I feel like, for example, when I was in North Carolina, the neighbors were just, there was ignorance, there was racism, there was
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was
Yeah.
said that I just don't align with.
Right.
All that I can do is lead by example. All
Mm-hmm.
that I can do is show you God's love. All that I can do is show you the testimonial of, like, I've been at the bottom and it
Mm-hmm.
feels better when you keep going and when you keep on loving yourself and you keep on learning. So for me, part of it is, I understand not everybody in this lifetime is meant to get it, and that's okay. The
Mm-hmm.
narcissist, the person who doesn't get it, is testing you to say,
Yeah.
are you going to point your finger? Are you going to look at those other fingers that are pointing back at you? Are you going to
Right.
say there's a problem, or are you going to find the solution? So, what we're seeing right now in this age is people are realizing they actually must step up to create the
Mm-hmm.
world that they want to see.
Yeah.
We are seeing accountability. John Lennon said, people look at it and say, Father's going to take care of it. Father is the government. Father will take care of it. And it's no, it's us. It's we the people. But most people haven't had the bandwidth or the belief system to actually slow down and change these structures. That's the silver lining on that lockdown that happened. And now people are like, I can't physically do this. I can't be in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be around 50%
Mm-hmm.
relationships. I can't do this. I guess I'm just going to have to get up and just starting messy and just going for it and just seeing what happens, right? So that's where I get excited about it and encourage other people to say, stop trying to save these other people that don't want to be saved, and instead find the people that you do connect with so you can amplify that. And in the same way, there are still racist people in society, but they
Yeah.
know that they have to be quiet. They know that they can't do that. They are children. They are children. It's time for mom energy and dad energy to come in and say, okay, I get that you don't
Mm-hmm.
like this. I get that you're scared. I get that this
Right.
is different for you. It's going to be okay. Go to your room and draw me a picture and tell me how angry you are and how sinful this is. That's okay. Mom and dad are going to take care of this, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to respect women, and we're going to go past these fear-based and divisive conversations. So it's a process. It's just people give energy and attention to places
Mm-hmm.
that are dead end roads, and it's time for us to focus on
Yeah.
finding solutions and having difficult conversations, to agree to disagree, and to hear, if you walk in that person's shoes, you would be thinking the exact same way.
Yeah. It's the world is changing so fast. I don't think uh, it's moving, especially with AI, that I don't think people are understanding how to cope. Like, we're in this first place of AI busted people's bubble. Like, technology
Right.
is here. If you grew up as a Terminator, I grew up with the concept of Terminator, which is, this guy is going to come from the future. He's going to kill you, and it was AI. It's like, it's here now, and people are sketchy, but it's coinciding with so many weird things that are happening in the world. And I do believe that we are experiencing an age shift. You and I both grew up with fiercely loving mothers. That's why I brought out that term, is because I felt that, and that was my mom. She was fiercely loving. She always invited two families to our Christmas dinner. I mean, it was like she wanted to include everybody. And I'm so grateful for those experiences, because he put me out of my comfort zone as a kid.
Yes. Yes.
But it was the perfect example of loving people that I needed. And I love that you grew up with a mom who taught you this. And I think that's a little bit of, we both grew up with this strong feminine concept in our lives where that's what the masculine needs. It needs a balance. It doesn't need one to subserve the other. It needs a solid teamwork balance. And I think you growing up with that strong feminine, you got to see that.
Yes, and then from there, it was my journey to discover what being a man went. I want to say
Mhm.
that what I've learned from content creation, from TikTok, like I posted a video recently and it went pretty viral. And the thing that I've learned, men use laughter as a coping mechanism to
Mm.
mask the pain. That I was sharing something, and part of it was I got a message that I had to share immediately, and I had soap in my eyes from the shower that I took, so my eyes looked red. And so half of the comments are like, "Oh my god, this is amazing, this is powerful," and then the rest of the comments are guys that are laughing and cracking jokes. I posted another video that was this man talking about relationships, and I was like, nah, this alpha male be strong nonsense. And I communicated how I'm in a healthy relationship. 80% of the comments from men are like, she's going to leave you, she's going to divorce you, I'm with her now, like wishing for me to suffer, wishing pain upon me, because you don't know my pain, you don't know what it's like to be me, the lie that society tells us. And so why should I care about you? Why should I be helpful for you? I don't understand you and I can't control you, and anything that I don't understand and can't control is fear and is here to attack me. And once you understand that, then we can have the conversation. It's frustrating that men go to this space and we got hustled into this belief system of I have to be strong and I have to be tough. And so we get strong hospital bills and tough hospital bills because of all that inflammation and all of that nobody appreciates me cancer disease that we get. It it's balancing out that when I show my emotions, when I tell you my story and you connect with me, the trauma is the golden thread that connects all of us. The
Mhm.
lie is that you don't understand what it's like to be me. So you don't know what it's like for you to have two moms. But when I tell you there was a point in my life where I felt unwanted, you're like, oh, okay, I felt that way before, and now we can
Mhm.
connect off of that. But society says that's weak. But that's healing, and that's truth, and that's connection, and that's what we sign up to learn so that we can bring each other together and see if we have the tenacity to pull ourselves up and to make peace with all of these things that used to plague us.
Yeah, you don't do the work to experience more pain. You do the work to get rid of the pain because the pain is caused by the stored judgment you have about yourself, about something. And it's like when you do it and then you release it, you're released from that energy. You have a lot more energy to do what you love. So,
Yes.
how are you helping people now with what you've learned?
Part of it now is when I get people who oppose my view or just flat out don't like me, I meet
Mhm.
them with love because I know that they're hurting. And again, like I said at the beginning of this, their roadmap for love is I only got attention when I was hurting. And so when I see
Sure.
somebody who's love, I'm going to hurt them because that's how I'm saying, help, I need love.
Hmm.
Um, really, at the end of the day, my thing is the people who identify with I'm unwanted, I'm unappreciated, I'm a burden, I'm not good enough, all these different concepts that limit us outnumber the the lie that society has been feeding us of always look good, never show your emotions, bulldoze over people and outrank everybody. And for me, it's never about me. I just see that we can change the algorithm, we can change society. Culture is an
Hmm.
agreement. Culture is an agreement. And
Yeah.
I feel like we're changing the culture because we all agree this system is an abusive relationship. So for
Nikki, how old are you? How old are you?
38, 38.
Okay. Are you a millennial?
Yes.
Or you're on the top end or low end? I don't know the millennial age group. The reason why I
Uh,
say that is big. I think that's the difference of the last 70 years is my parents are gone. I'm 55, so I'm a Gen X. And here's the reality is that our capacity to find the bullshit faster is each generation finds it faster. That's what social media has done. And The bullshit meter, like on Gen Z, is super, super, super high because you can't undo what you know. And each generation is learning more that there's ways we have to operate collectively that have got to change.
Right.
And
This is where, again, I'm not the expert, but I want to encourage people to do research.
but you've
The
been through the trenches though.
Yes, yeah, the boomer generation, whatever the planetary alignment was, I think it was something in Virgo. Again, you're going to encourage people, do the research. What
Yeah.
planetary alignment happened when the boomer generation was started? And
Mm-hmm.
so when you talk with boomers, their conversation is, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is.
That's
You
what I
know,
was going to say is they it's harder for them to change because their capacity to know they had neuroplasticity didn't exist for most of their life. Whereas Gen Z, they know they have neuroplasticity and they can change the story tomorrow.
yes,
Boomers never learned that. For
right,
50 years, they never learned that. So it's hard for them
right,
to embrace that.
right.
And you're
Whereas I forget what Gen X's alignment is, but millennials were in Scorpio. So Scorpio
okay.
does the deep dive and goes into the shadows and goes into the
Mm-hmm.
darkness. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where the curiosity and the questioning, and I know your generation as well, really started that, to be like, is it the way that it is? Is this how it's
Yeah.
supposed to be? Because I don't like this.
Right.
And when people from the boomer generation say the younger generations are disrespectful, it's like, we're in an abusive relationship. You've
Yeah.
been
We are. That's a
disrespectful
great way. Great way to
since
put it.
since the beginning. And so the younger generations now I'm a stepfather, I'm raising three children. The generations now, Aquarius is like you're this is BS. I see you. And also Aquarius
Mm-hmm.
can be adaptable. So when you're saying the sky is blue, the younger generations are going, is it blue? Why is it blue? What does blue mean to you? So
Mm-hmm.
it's that questioning right now that you're going
Mm-hmm.
to see even more, and be like, this doesn't work. We don't like this. It isn't going to happen that way. So that's where you're seeing people that are getting those growing pains and feeling uncomfortable, because to be human is to need to control everything
Mm-hmm.
around you. And when you
Mm-hmm.
understand that, you can step outside of that and say, okay, I don't know this, but this is why intuition is vital, because I can tune into my body and say, this feels good. This feels
Mm-hmm.
healthy. I'm not hurting anybody.
Yeah, I over the last 10 years I've been trying to just define for myself what does that space look like? It's that most productive step that I can take that is loving myself. That's the starting point. Everything else is secondary. It's got to be loving back towards me. And that space of love always begins with the person that I'm interacting, their love. So trust them. Let's start with trust. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And that radically changes the way people interact with you. They're not operating from a defensive posture, they're operating from a potential posture. And I think
Yes.
that's the value of love is when we operate from the space of love, we're giving everybody the benefit of the doubt and we're probably going to be right 98% of the time.
Yes, well said. And also, for example, like when I healed my mother wounds and my father wounds,
Mhm.
like my conversation with my mom was like, when it was fear, judgment, it was an understanding of, this is her way of saying I love you. This is her
Mhm.
way of saying I care about you. I'm scared to lose you. I don't want for you to be judged in society. I want for you to be better than me, but I don't know how to communicate all of that. So my conversation was, thank you for showing me that you love me. You've raised a good son. I know what I'm
Mhm.
doing now, even if it feels like it doesn't look that way to you. I like to make mistakes and I love to learn lessons and get better because of that. And then it was like, oh, okay, because their generation was, work hard, don't talk about your emotions, get the gold watch, and then retire for 5 years and then hope that you don't get hospital bills. So when you understand that, in the same way, if you have a nagging mother or father, you're their purpose. So now that they're older and they're retired, if they don't have a purpose, they spiral out and they spin out. So when they're
Right.
overly critical of you, that's their way of saying, you're my world. and I don't want you to be damaged, and I care about you. And that's beautiful and that's sweet,
Mhm.
versus the resentment of, why are you always telling me what to do? And why do you think that I don't know what I'm doing? Having
Mhm.
that understanding gives peace, and you can have compassion for that generation instead of being frustrated. And again, that's where we can work around all the problems in this world to say, if you're going to say that's the way it is and you need things to be solid and to make sense, I get that. So I'm going to respect that, and I'm going to be more fluid and more open, and I'm going to show you, like a father, like a mother, I'm going to show you this new space. I'm going to show you this love, and I'm going to show you what that feels like. And if you don't like it, that's okay. We're still moving forward because we're getting out of this abusive relationship, and we're having these difficult conversations so we can really see where everybody is at, and then find the compromise and find the common ground.
So there's the devil's advocate approach or question to this, which is okay. This concept of just love everybody is pie in the sky because some days suck. Okay, it's
Totally.
not they suck; they suck. And I don't want to give anybody ever any impression that I don't or you don't have any sucky days. But how do you get out of those days? Because it's the
Yes.
days you fall in the rut. It happens. How do you get out of them?
I think this is probably one of the best questions. I loved every single question. I think this is one of the best ones. I deliberately go out of my way to be transparent with people who watch me, who follow me, who hang out with me. I go out of my way. When I first started getting into the coaching space, I was coaching a woman who was Grammy Award winning, like iconic in her industry, had
Mhm.
4 different coaches, and would turn off the camera and be a completely different person than the word that she was preaching and telling people about. And I was like, $400 an hour, like for this, and like this is the behind the scenes. That's crazy. So one of the best things that I've learned from this relationship, one of the first arguments that we got into, because when you get out of an abusive relationship and when you get into a healthy relationship, more of your trauma can show up because your body's like, we're safe now.
Oh,
Okay, like I'm gonna
right,
dump everything. So we
right.
got into this argument, and we were both essentially saying the same thing. We both felt like the other person wasn't listening. And I found myself almost having this out of body experience where I was like screaming, and I'm like, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. And finally, she tuned into it because she studied with shamans, because she goes into those spaces, and she realized, because she's also experienced domestic violence, she identified that she was safe. In shamanism, there's this concept called holding space, where
Mhm.
when somebody is angry or sad, you want for them to release that. You want for them to express it. You want for them to get it out of their system so that they can
Mhm.
be clear. And she did just that. And she was like, tell me more. Keep yelling. Tell me more. Tell me how you really feel. And I was like,
Mm.
who are you? Like, what
Yeah,
are you talking about? You want for me to let out all of the anger? Like, all of it, all of it? And
because it's not directed at her, right? It's just what
it's
you're
not,
feeling.
not at all. And so I talked and I shared and we communicated, and then we were able to discuss what it was connected to, what it reminded me of,
Mhm.
a moment in my childhood when I had a mother wound, when I was talking with my mom about something that was
Mhm.
traumatic, and I felt like she didn't listen to me, and I felt stupid and all this stuff. And then it was a conversation of, do you now see that's not who you are? Yes, I can see that. I can see that I'm not stupid. I can see that I'm loved. I can see that I'm in a better space now. Okay,
Mhm.
do you want to release this? Are you ready to release this definition? Yes. Okay, claim it, declare it. Okay. Thank you for teaching me these lessons. Thank you for showing me how to be strong. Thank you for protecting me. I release you. I love you. I now choose to live my life as somebody who is loved, as somebody who is whole and complete. So I started realizing, when I have bad days, miserable days, frustrating days, numb days, I get excited about it because I have this formula, I have this equation I can go into of, what does this intuitively remind you of? What's one moment in your life that this feels familiar of? Okay, give that younger version of yourself a chance to speak. What's the story? What's the story that you're telling yourself? Okay, cool. Can you now see that's not who you are? Okay, I get that. Who are you now? Oh, amazing. Can you see that that other person had trauma? Can you see that they were hurting? Can you see that somebody took advantage of them? Yeah, I could see that. That sucks. So, okay, so that was their language to communicate that. Can you forgive them?
Mhm.
Absolutely. I even forgive myself for holding that against them because I didn't even have that idea about them. Oh
Right.
my goodness. And then I can release it. So society lies to us and says, always be upbeat, always be outgoing. For me now, like I love flow. I love when things click. I love when things connect. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Also, at the same time, the reason why I'm growing healthier and healthier and healthier and younger and younger and younger is because when I have those frustrating days, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days for me to identify where that anger comes from, but man, when I release
Yeah.
it, it shows up and it
Right.
transforms.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of getting out of the rut or ditch or whatever you fall into is in the rut, it's very hard to cognitively frame context to say, okay, what's really happening because we're in a rut. It's like, holy shit, something bad is happening and we're in fight or flight mode. And it's hard because you can't see context unless you get over the really hard neurochemicals that are going on. So you have to learn like this 90-second skill just to even be able to rationally think. And that's hard to do for people because most people, they feel something and then they immediately get afraid and just walk away.
Right.
And I think over time, it's possible to learn that you can sit in the midst of that
Yes.
and let
Yes.
it pass for 90 seconds. And then guess what? You can actually think rationally about it, going, oh, and then you can see the other person's hurt too.
Yes. It's a muscle. It's like learning how to walk or
Yeah.
talk. It's a practice.
Yeah.
At first these conversations are going to feel cheesy and they're going to feel
Yeah.
fake and they're going to feel stupid because you're so
Hmm.
used to chaos and drama and fear and I'm not good enough and shutting down and all that different
Right.
stuff. For me now, what I'm telling clients, what I'm telling people is I have to start off the day identifying how I feel. And if I can't
Hmm.
identify what mood I feel, then I start to actually map out what my day is. And that's anxiety. And then I can actually have a tool. Deep breathing, for example, Wim Hof breath, 11 minutes, change your life. Going into that deep breathing and then being able to hold your breath for a minute and noticing all of these thoughts that show up and pop up. There's tools, there's meditation, there's awareness, there's prayer, whatever your go-to thing is. I feel like when people have terrible days, it's because we're still in autopilot of
Hmm.
society's going to validate me. My paycheck is going to validate me. I'm
Right.
going to get it externally versus being able to say,
Hmm.
if I'm angry, if I'm irritated, I would rather be late to this meeting and take time to check in with myself, even if that means me taking 3 deep breaths in a bathroom and doing a power pose to get
Hmm.
myself into a better space. Because when I show up, I'm clear and I'm transparent and I'm not masking. And even if you don't even believe in energy, you're picking up on my energy. You're picking up on that, whether you're conscious or
Hmm.
not of that fact. So it's being able to say, like, I'm accountable and I take responsibility and I get when I'm in a better space that I'm great and I'm not going to shame myself when I feel sadness or anger. This is an opportunity to get that release and to redefine and to reparent myself so that I'm not walking around with
Hmm.
that guilt and that shame.
Do you believe in God or do you have a concept of God or would you consider yourself more of an atheist or a spiritual person?
Absolutely, absolutely. When my conversation with people is when you grow up without a father, it's very, very common to get incarcerated, to have anger issues, to hang out with the knuckleheads. I hit everything on the checklist. And when I was incarcerated, that was where the jail that I went to was Santa Rita in California, and I messaged my mom and I was like, "Who's Saint Rita? Because this is a saint." And so she sent me some information, and so I started praying to this saint, and I started praying to God to say, like, I was desperate, I hurt people, I offended people, I'm wrong, I was out of
Mhm.
my mind. This isn't who I am. Please forgive me. Every single day, right around the same time, I was saying basically the same prayer. I had a dream that I saw myself as a child. He had the Oshkosh overalls on and everything. And
Mhm.
And there was this light, there was this figure of light that was walking next to him. This was dusty path. And the younger version of me said, "Where have you been? I've been waiting for you." And then this brilliant flash of light
I love that.
exploded. And then I was like, "Oh, that's God. That's God. That is
Right.
God."
Right.
And that was it. And then it was this message of, now your journey has begun. I was actually going to get baptized while I was in jail, as cliched as it might be for some of your listeners. For me, it was very real. The day that I was supposed to, I got transferred to another section. And then randomly, but not randomly, one of the deputies saw me and was like, "Do you want to clean bathrooms?" And I was like, sure. And then I got work in lieu, which means I was able to go home and also clean the jail cells, but I would get my freedom. So that was God's way of saying, if you really want to go through this process, go through it and honor it. So the church that I went to in Alameda, the pastor there, Father Rich, actually later came out as gay, and there was nothing about him that was like, you wouldn't even know it about him. He was just pure love. He was a
Right.
person who baptized me because I loved his word. I loved that he was, I felt like that was the true message of Jesus, the true message of God,
Mhm.
how loving, how compassionate, how caring he was. And conceptually for people who have a difficulty with organized religion, the concept of, this isn't who I am, and I don't want to carry this with me anymore, and I'm connected with God, and I'm going to show God that I am love, and that I'm doing God's work, and I'm doing this in God's name, to really be that advocate, and to be that representative of God's love. I'm all the way in, and I've experienced it, and I felt that testimony. So yeah, absolutely. I can find God on the subway. I can find God. If you take me to church, I'll go with you, and I'm not going to put you down for your
Right.
belief, because
Right.
I know what I know, and I'm good with where you're at. And like, I
Right.
absolutely, I believe in God. Yeah, like I tell people, if you're going through a difficult time, I dare you to tell God, I put my life in your hands.
Right. I love the way you put that because that's sort of the journey with God. God's basically saying, okay, I'm not going to let you see me in traditional ways. Like, I'm not a materialist. I'm going to live in the energy. But if you trust me, I will reveal myself. And it's a provocative idea, but when you discover it's God is really there, it's profound because you can't ignore it because it's a feeling. It takes over. It's the
Yes,
feeling of love is not the idea of love. The
yes,
feeling of love is this overwhelming sense of you belong, you are wanted, you are appreciated, and it's within. It's not out here. It's not the praise. It's within, and you can't deny it. And what I love about it is that you've discovered that, and we both realize it's better to give it away. You are special. There's something special about you that I know you already know it, um, and I want to call that out.
thank you.
Okay, I want you to realize that you have something special. What do you want to do with that? That's my question.
My well, first of all, our nonprofit that my wife and I have created, onesourceaction.org, is focused on giving people social justice, educational justice, and
Mhm.
environmental justice. And we're currently looking for educators and people. We're 5,000 members strong, and we're looking for educators who want to get a tax write-off that can contribute and add value to people. We're going to be giving people farm to table food. We're going to be giving people forever homes and education and resources, and documenting all of that to change the algorithm and to change the focus in society.
Where
Um,
do people find that?
onesourceaction.org. Um,
OneSourceAction.org.
when you take everything away, my thing is, there's a couple pieces. I want for people to get that everything that plagues them and hurts them is a misinterpretation. It's a mistranslation.
Mm.
I really, really, really want to encourage people to understand, we're storytellers. And if you don't like your story, it's because you're not telling it. You're telling other people's perspectives of your story. And when you can really, really get that, and really truly take that deep dive to say, How do
Yeah.
these things that I strongly dislike about myself, that I resent about myself, how could they possibly benefit me and benefit other people? Your pain is your power, is your purpose. So really, really connect with that excitement of discovering what your story is,
Mm.
and again, when life feels uncomfortable, really, really understand being comfortable in the uncomfortable is a superpower, and that you have
Yeah.
no idea
Yeah.
where this is taking you. And
Mhm.
last but not least, reconnect, even if it was with a moment, a sliver in time, reconnect with the child before you were told how life is, who had
Mm.
excitement, that didn't know that there was opinions, and really get into that space. And when you love yourself, really, 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 really love yourself, most of the problems that you see in this world go away. Find your story, tell your story. You're a storyteller. Tell your story, storyteller. Tell your story. Don't let it tell you.
Nikki, you're my favorite guest ever, hands down, because you and I are so much. You and I are in the same wavelength, 100%, and it's wonderful to experience. It makes me feel like I'm not going crazy sometimes because I. It's nice to have someone reflect it back that is experiencing the same thing. It's like, okay, I'm not fucking out there. It's like, because some days I feel like I live on the corner of the metaverse or the
Well,
multiverse.
we're finding, yes, this is how we find our people. This is how we're finding
Yeah,
our community through
yeah,
technology. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure and such an honor. I'm so glad we got to connect. And yeah, thank you to
absolutely.
technology. And thank you for acknowledging me in the way that I acknowledge you.
Absolutely, bro. And so, to all my guests, this has been such a fabulous journey with Nikki. Please comment, subscribe, and review if you can. We would love it. This has been Living in the Matrix. Much love, everybody.
Peace.